As soon as we talk about creating an agent, especially for data analysis or document analysis, the ability to have everything in a single report or a dynamic dashboard, like what we did in another video here, is really very practical. It's very visual. Even, look, once it's generated, I can share it as a link. So maybe not copy the content, but share it here. You'll get a link, and it basically becomes a presentation that you can share with your colleagues, discuss together, and use to analyze data. You can even add parameters like sliders or forms to modify everything, and it really becomes something very dynamic. On the other hand, the problem is that it's very difficult for the average professional to explain. In the end, how do I make this agent consistently generate dashboards or reports like this? So, you need to know the keyword, the little extension, the element you have to mention to get something truly consistent, and that is in HTML or in CSS. Quite simply, HTML is the language of the web. Everything you see here is made with HTML and CSS. By the way, if I go back to my dashboard, look, if I go back to the dashboard, you can see there's an element labeled code, and actually that's HTML. You don't need to understand what it is. You don't need to understand what it is. You can simply tell it. So here, modify this for me. If you want, you can even tell it, you used the wrong data. Go back to the documents. Do it again. For me, you don't need to understand or know how to read HTML. That's not the most important thing. You just need to know that this is what it relies on to generate. Basically, it's a kind of micro application, a mini website inside Gemini. So now how? How do I make it so that Gemini is able to generate something like this for me with the right colors, always in a way where I can really rely on it? So what I did was I created a little agent here, a demo consultant, CSR. I could modify it again. And you can see that in the instructions, what I said was, if I ask you for HTML, I expect you to produce it. An HTML and CSS report, fully integrating the entire report. So that's already pretty good. You should know, remember what we saw just before, it was green. I wasn't the one who chose the colors. I think the AI thought, we're talking about CSR, so I'll use green. But nothing is stopping you from simply specifying in the instructions. This is a little tip I'm giving you. Whenever you say, I want, you have to say it like this, in HTML. The report needs to be done in HTML and CSS. So that's the extension you need to specify. But nothing is stopping you from then saying, for example, I want the report to be in such and such color. So here, for example, I'm going to show you, but above all, I want it to be very corporate, with nice animations, a white background, and I want the rest to be different shades of blue. And here, in fact, I told it I want it in HTML, and that's really the key word. And then I'm going to give it the colors. And you'll see that if I ask it, exactly with the same prompt, so remember what it looks like this. So this is before I modify the prompts. I copy the prompt, meaning the message that was given to generate this. I go back to my empty conversations. I make sure to select my agent here. I ask it, and you'll see what it's going to do. So here, I know it's going to make a mistake. I prefer to tell you, it's expected. I know it's going to get it wrong. And then it's going to tell me, oh, well, I could do this in HTML. That wouldn't be bad. It's going to give me HTML like that. So it's always the same thing. It's code. You might say, I'm disappointed. I don't understand why it can't do it. So the element that is extremely important to point out, and it might seem silly, but I prefer to show you because otherwise you'll tear your hair out. You won't understand why it's not working. The thing is actually, you have to specify in the instructions that you want HTML and CSS. That way you don't need to repeat it in the prompt. You don't need to say it here. I need HTML and CSS, but one thing that's mandatory here is that you have to switch to Canva mode. Canva mode allows you to create PowerPoint presentations, Google Slides for those who want to stay in the Google ecosystem, as well as dynamic dashboards. And as you can see, with just 2 clicks, you get a completely different result. So I'd like us to check 2 things. I want us to make sure that the colors are correct and that the dashboard works. That's really what matters most. But you can see that if no one simply explains to you that you need to add HTML and CSS, either in the prompt or in the instructions, personally, I prefer to put it in the instructions so I don't have to think about it anymore. And then that you need to click on Canva mode, you'll be left wondering, why? In the end, I'm not able to do it. Beyond that, you'd never have the chance to know that this AI, so Gemini, is actually capable of creating dashboards. And that's what's really important today. And you can see, look, a very nice dashboard, very corporate, so an ESG consultant with my colors. So here, it made something a bit big for me. That's actually because it tried to lay it out as if it were on a phone. You can see that I have a very high quality dashboard. And as I like to say, it's not exactly genius work. There's nothing genius about it. What did I do? I know how to use this tool. I know that. If I ask this agent I created to make me some HTML and CSS, so HTML and CSS, and I give it my colors, my theme, how we want to express ourselves, even the structure, because here I didn't specify that. I let it do pretty much what it wants. But for example, if I tell it each time you need to set this up in such a way that you present it in such a way, so by giving it examples, what you've seen or what we'll see in the next video as well, you'll see that it will be able to follow exactly what you want to do 100%. I'll let you get started with that. First, experiment. Once again, if it does something well, for example, the Eco Software Guide, and it includes the information you need, you add that to the instructions, as we said, as an extension. And you'll see that the results will be top quality.